Hey guys, today I want to talk about concealed carry. Some things that are overlooked, some things that are hyperfixated on that really aren't that important. My goal on this is an effort to get you guys more prepared, more ready, more capable as an armed citizen. With that, welcome to the podcast where we talk about this topic, God willing, many more, the right way, with God at the center, biblical Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. All in that military, law enforcement, private security, contracting. Been a professional firearms instructor a very long time. Been carrying both on-duty and off-duty for quite a long time. Bio bullet points in the show notes. Let's get into it, shall we? I recently reposted an episode on a feel-good story, the concealed carry movement in America. Something to that effect is the title. But when I got into being a concealed carry instructor, there were very, very few people concealed carrying. When I was growing up, it was still during the assault weapons ban. And most states did not have a concealed carry thing. Getting a concealed carry permit in a lot of places when it wasn't possible or very, very prohibitively difficult, and many people did not do it. Concealed carry was not a thing like it is today. If you can easily go look at a map of the years and go look at a map from 20, 30 years ago of states that had concealed carry, had constitutional carry, permitless carry, shall issue, all that stuff. That's been a huge success for us as Americans. And if you've only gotten into guns in, say, the past 10 years, you may just think, oh, people have always just concealed carried. Very, very rarely. Most people did not, and it was not a common thing. That is fantastic. And don't think that when I'm talking about this that I'm disparaging that. I think it's fantastic, and I think more men should do it. More women, too, for that matter. But it is the primary job as a man to be a protector of other men, of women, of children, and society as a whole. You shall not stand idly by while somebody takes the life of your neighbor. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So I am tickled pink at the thought of more people concealed carrying. So again, don't take some of this stuff the wrong way. And many people get into this with very little firearms background, which there's nothing wrong with that. But in the age of social media, I think that, and everything's instant gratification, well, becoming a good handgun shooter is not instant gratification. It takes a lot of hard work and dedication. It's far harder to master a handgun than it is a rifle or a shotgun. It is very, very unforgiving. It is a very highly perishable skill, much more so than rifle. It is a hard discipline. Don't think I've noticed this. I've done a lot of instruction. I'm a state rifle and pistol champion several times over. So just believe me when I say that handgun shooting is a far more perishable skill than rifle shooting, and it takes a lot more to master it. It's one of the reasons I love the handgun, because it is so unforgiving. But there is no watching your favorite TikToker, YouTuber, social media influencer and becoming a good handgun shooter just by watching them. Oh, I saw a video about this is the proper grip, and now that I know this grip, I'm an awesome handgun shooter. No, that's not how it works. Some things you can't just get by clicking and buying on Amazon. Some things you can't just watch a social media influencer and like their videos and become proficient. That's not how that works. Now, YouTube can be handy for some stuff, right? If you want to watch a YouTube video on how to disassemble your firearm, great. But you need actual real-world instruction. And I'm no longer professionally firearms instructing. Like, I'm still certified, but I don't currently do it. I'm working as a private security contractor, which by God's grace pays very well. I'm doing this podcast, which I try not to think about the money because I sometimes make more in a good day of private security contracting than I make in a month of the podcast. But because a podcast also costs money to produce and things like that. But anyway, I'm not currently, unless I just know somebody and they want help, like I'm not teaching at any big schools like I used to. I'm not teaching for the F.B.I, as a handgun instructor or anything like that right now. So I'm not pushing my training or anybody else's training. But you need actual first-hand training, and not like your Uncle Jimbo that was in Nam. Your Uncle Jimbo being in Nam, hats off to him. Fantastic. I'm a combat veteran, different war, but that doesn't mean that they're a good handgun shooter. I recently worked with one of the guys on my contract, scout sniper, was a scout sniper. He said he shot handguns 0 times in the Marine Corps. Right, we were in the Marine Corps. I was in a little bit before him, but we're talking about handguns. He had never shot one in the Marine Corps. Maybe there was like a magazine dump with like fam fire, but like he had never got any training in handgun. So just because somebody was in the military or something, or they're your uncle or whatever, they may know good firearm safety because that's pretty much beat into you in most services, but that doesn't make them a good handgun shooter. You need to seek professional instruction firsthand from somebody that knows what they're doing, and not just watching their videos, but actually paying to get instruction. There are a lot of really good instructors. Do your due diligence. Not everything is as easy as clicking on Amazon. Do some research. Find a good instructor in your area. I often, mourn for you guys that live behind the, Iron Curtain east of the Mississippi River in Mordor, whatever you want to call it, with tons and tons of people. But the good thing is, if you live on the East Coast, Northeast, Southeast, Midwest, it's just people everywhere, which means there's firearm schools and instruction way easier to obtain than there is in like the vast middle of the country or the Wild West, the greater Yellowstone area. So you probably are near some instructors if you live east of the Mississippi River, a lot more than you would be other places. Find a good instructor. This isn't even where I thought I was going with this episode, but it really is. Like, you can't just expect to buy something and be good at it. That's not how handgun shooting works. Go get real professional instruction. Not from me, from just do your research, right? That's one of the things. And again, that's not even what I wanted to talk about. I'm barely getting into that. I think because a lot of people getting into concealed carry, and this is a good thing, again, I'm not disparaging this, but a lot of people getting into concealed carry have never been in combat. They have never been in a violent struggle for their very existence, for their life, for their mortal coil to continue, right? And as somebody that has been in those situations, it is a very serious matter. And I think because many people that have gotten into concealed carry, for them it's just some amorphous, intangible, theoretical situation that one day I could maybe need a gun, so I had better have one. So they go down the road of, okay, I have a gun, and I check that box. I have a gun, I went to the range once or twice, ergo, that box is checked. I can go back to playing fantasy football or whatever people do. I don't even have a television. But whatever normal people do. Whatever, doom scrolling on Instagram. I don't have social media stuff like that either. But whatever they do. Like, I got that box checked, now I can do something else. But if you actually realize that there are people out there that want to kill you, there is an entire religion of Muslims that would like nothing better than to cut your head off and take your women. And they've been doing it for 1,200 years, and they're around. When you realize that there are violent criminals on all kinds of crazy controlled substances that will kill you just for the sheer entertainment of it because they're sick, twisted individuals. And those people exist. And as somebody that's dealt with those kind of individuals, that kind of changes your perspective. So take it from me, put a little bit more thought and effort into this. If you are going to be in a mano-a-mano fight for your life, or a mano versus several manos, right? Well, one on more than one. Struggle for your life where they want nothing more than to stop you from breathing. because they hate you, they hate your religion, they hate your skin color, they hate your way of life, or they just are just sick and twisted and they're doing it for entertainment because they want to see somebody suffer. Those people exist. And when you're in a struggle like that for your life, is that gun and that training that you have, are you satisfied with that? Is that Ruger LCP in your pocket that you took out to the range twice last year, is that what you want when that person is trying to end your life? Now, one of the reasons I was thinking about this episode is one of the people on Patreon, they were asking about how to carry a bigger gun, and they were carrying like a compact gun. And I'm a big, if you're new to this podcast or what I talk about on the subject, carry a full-size fighting handgun on your hip like a man. Stop carrying a little baby gun. Stop pointing a little tiny gun at your genitals and thinking that you're good and you checked a box. Anyway, enough of that. But this person was asking, like, I'm carrying a compact gun, and it was a decent compact gun for a compact gun. But, like, how can I do this and basically wear whatever I want to wear? No, you're thinking about it wrong. Now, there are days, right, where you're not going to be able to carry a full-size gun. Like if you're tubing down a river, probably that day. But how many days in a year is that? Normally, dress practically, which means wearing pants with a belt loops and a belt. Tuck your shirt in and wear a collared shirt and wear a full-size fighting handgun and probably a reload and a knife at the minimum, and a tourniquet. Like, this is not the episode for concealed carry, but again, if somebody's trying to kill you that day, which you don't know when that day is going to be, could be today, could be never, could be tomorrow. But the fact that it hasn't happened yet and you haven't experienced it doesn't mean that it won't. You only die once. Somebody only murders you once. And again, I realize many of you have not experienced that, somebody trying to murder you. But trust me, if you had, you may take it a bit more seriously. So don't learn that the hard way. Learn it from other people's experiences. I'm going to go off on a bit of a rabbit hole here, but I heard, and it makes a lot of sense because I'm familiar with the numbers in combat, that less deaths in combat recently and a lot more like injury casualties. Why is that? Because modern medicine has begotten, and trauma medicine has become so good. People in the GWAT that maybe not only, but that lost a leg may have almost certainly died in years past. Before that, like when I was there for the initial invasion of Iraq when the global war on terror started, right? We didn't carry tourniquets. It's kind of crazy. Trauma medicine has come a long way. In many ways. That's just one example. But getting back to the concealed carry, violent crime. People are like, oh, murder rates are down since like the 70s. Well, they are because a lot of people don't die that would have died. But it doesn't mean people trying to kill people has gone down. It kind of leads you down the wrong path to think the society is more peaceful. When just less people are dying that are getting attacked or victims of violent crime, because emergency medicine is so good, antibiotics, tourniquets. So I don't think that the threat is not there or it's somehow diminished. The threat of violence, people trying to kill you, is still very much a real thing. And this goes to far more than concealed carry, but it also creeps into concealed carry where people are far more concerned about the gear. And look, I do a lot of gear talk. I do a lot of firearms talk and caliber talk. I do, because a lot of people talk about that don't have much real-world first-hand experience. And that's fine if you're doing it for entertainment. There's a lot of really good entertainment, gun tube, glitterati, and influencers that are just there for entertainment. Like, you want to go shoot a cantaloupe with a Desert Eagle, have fun with that. I'm not putting that down, but I saw, one of the reasons I got into this space is I saw a lack of people talking about it from a real-world first-hand experience. And so I do talk about calibers and guns and this gun versus that gun because you make a wise choice. But, again, getting into the creeps in American culture and far more than concealed carry, People hyper fixate on gear when it's not super important. I harp on carry a full-size fighting handgun like a man on your hip, but it's less so important that you have a 15-round mag or a 17-round mag or a 20-round mag. The odds of you needing that 15th round or 17th round, it's not zero, but the bread and butter, the meat and potatoes of what's important for concealed carry is you actually having the gun and being able to access it quickly. Because you could be the best handgun shooter in the world, the most accurate handgun shooter in the world, but if you can't get that gun out in time, you're dead before you ever get it. Like if somebody's shooting at you, like if you've ever had the displeasure of having bullets fly at you or hit you, you got to get that gun into action quick enough for it to make a difference. So you need to be able to access it quickly. And then what's very important is to get hits. Not to make noise, not to get shots off, not to do a mag dump into a berm, or to do 5 edits until you get hits really quick, but to cold and on demand, meaning without any warm-up, whatever the impetus is for you having to get that gun out, you can cold and on demand get hits at whatever distance, at whatever size target the demand calls for with your system. That is so much more important than whether you're shooting plus P ammo or whether you have a 15-round mag or a 17-round mag, or right, whether you have a closed emitter red dot or an open red dot, or all the other minutia that people hyper fixate on. I'm not saying that stuff is not important at all, but it's not even the icing on the cake. It's like the sprinkles on the icing on the cake. The main substance is you need to be able to get that gun accessed quickly and get hits on target first, second, third, maybe fifth, sixth, seventh. And this is not me being a fan of limited capacity magazines. You should be able to have whatever capacity magazines you want. I'm just saying, the 17th round is exponentially less important than the first, second, and third round. Because if you look at real-world statistics, first, second, third round hits are what matter, not 16, 17, 18 rounds. Again, I'm not saying not to have those, but don't hyperfixate on that. I would much rather carry a, let's say, full-size 1911 with a good trigger and good duty ammo, with a really good trigger, good grip, good ergonomics, than, what is that, 8 rounds? Let's say it's a 9mm, so we're comparing more apples to apples, 9 rounds in the magazine. I would so much rather have that than one of these little hashtag #MeToo Glock 43s, and I've owned a Glock 43. I almost immediately sold it. Why? It's a baby gun. It's for babies. Then a Glock 43 with a 15-round magazine that's a little tiny micro baby 9 with a Glock trigger and Glock ergonomics and all the other Glock things. And again, I can shoot a Glock well. I've won competitions with a Glock, but why would I make that choice? Because it's got 15-round mags and a tiny gun? You're worried about what's important on paper, not what's important in reality. What's important in reality is getting that gun out and getting a hit on target quickly. And I think if you were honest with yourself and you did a fair amount of training with both, you'd realize that a 1911, and I don't even generally carry a 1911. There's guns that do both, right? I like 2011s, I like SIG 226s, but that are much more shootable than a little baby striker-fired gun. But people think, I've got this gun, it checks a box. And it even has 15 rounds, I checked that box too. I've got capacity, now I'm good to go. Is it? Is it good to go? Are you focused on the right things or the what's hot on Instagram things? Are you focused about what's good on paper, or are you focused about what actually matters? Right? The rifleman's creed. I know this is pistol, this is concealed carry, but the rifleman's creed. It's not the amount of rounds in your magazine. It's not the noise that counts. It's not, whatever color Cerakote you have on your Gucci gun or the extra grips or the extended magazines. It's the hits that count. The hits are the only thing that counts. You could have the coolest looking gun in the world. If you can't make hits with it, it doesn't count. It doesn't matter. It's inconsequential. It's a really, Instagrammy, memey paperweight is what it is. Cool, you're the guy that died with some, cool guy gun in your waistband pointing at your genitals because you couldn't get it out in time because you're carrying a baby gun shoved down your pants like a Mexican gangster. Again, a lot of people, because they don't actually think about they're actually going to need it, they're like, oh, I have a gun. Box checked. Oh, it has 15 rounds. Box checked. If the box you want to check is, I can flex on Instagram, okay, then that box is checked. But if you're actually planning on fighting for your life, maybe that box is not as checked as you think it is. Is there a time and a place for a little baby gun? Yeah, there is. I own a couple. I own, one of my the first handgun I ever bought with my own money. I was issued a Beretta 92, carried it in combat, carried it in war. I was issued a Glock 22, horrible gun, but I carried that until I got something else, L.A.P.D, because that was my issued gun. They let you carry other guns, but that was the one I had to go through the academy with. But they did not provide a backup gun. So the first gun I bought was a little Smith & Wesson J-frame, 38 Special. Still have it. I still sometimes carry it. I have one in .357 Magnum. I sometimes rarely carry it because it's the most I can get away with. I have a little Kel-Tec P32 that I sometimes carry. But it's a very small fraction of the time. Like if I'm doing wind sprints, I will have one of those. If I'm wearing silkies, doing pull-ups, kind of hard to do that with a full-size fighting handgun. If I'm getting a workout in. But what is that, a small fraction of the day? If I did 2 workouts a day, a little over an hour, that's 10% of the day, right? So the vast majority of the time, I don't carry one of those little baby guns. Why? Because they're not as good at accomplishing the task. It may, and to be fair, this may not make a difference. Right, if you're going to get gas at a 7-Eleven at 2 a.m. and some meth addict rushes you with a knife and you just have to pull out a gun and put a couple rounds in him at contact distance, maybe whatever platform of gun it is inconsequential. A little Smith & Wesson J-frame 38 will still work for that. What if that's not the scenario, though? What if there's, an active shooter at, places you go all the time? Walmart, the gym, church. If you're facing a couple of armed attackers, is that the gun that you want? Probably not. Oh, your workplace. Workplace violence is a thing. Go look up those statistics, right? Workplace violence is absolutely a thing. Sally in accounting is sleeping with Jim in accounting, and her husband Bob finds out about it, and he comes in and just decides he wants to kill everybody because he's had enough. Right? Those things actually happen. I don't care if you work at a car dealership or a tractor supply store, right? You're not immune from this. One of the things that I would hear when I was a cop that, I'd be honest, I got jaded to it because I just got sick of hearing it was, I never thought it would happen to me. As if somehow bad things only happen to other people. As if somehow bad things just weren't going to happen to them. Like they knew they happened to their neighbors, they knew what happened in the neighborhood, they knew that it was a real thing in real life, but they just never thought it would happen to them. Why? I submit because they didn't want to believe it would happen to them. Now the people that I heard that from obviously weren't murdered. I couldn't hear from those people, they were dead. But people whose cars got broken into, homes got broken into, worse kind of things. Try and keep this family friendly, right? But you don't live in a bubble. Now, don't get this wrong. I trust in God for protection. I should have been dead so many times over. I've felt the cold hand of death, more than once, and I'm still, by God's grace, here to talk about it. Not because I'm so awesome at whatever, but because God had chose to have mercy on me and bless me. There's a lot of good men who never came back from the war, and I don't pretend to be any better than them. Because of God's grace, He chose to save me, and I'm here to pass knowledge and experience on to you guys. It's one of the reasons I do the podcast. to provide you valuable real-world first-hand information. God protected David, but guess what? David still had to sling some stones. David still had to pick up a sword and cut some heads off. Right? Just because God protected David didn't mean that David didn't have to use violence and be good at it. Right? Or Gideon. Or any of the mighty men that you can read about in the Bible. So, I guess this is a good place to wrap it up. I didn't really have a good outline. I just wanted to get some of these thoughts out there because I think it's important. Not only do I think it's important, I'm going to end with, I normally end with a tactical tip of the day. I'm going to skip that and go because I think it's succinct to the tactical verse of the day. The words of Christ, Jesus, let he who has no sword sell his cloak and buy one. Now that's the actual verse, some of my thoughts, or put it into modern vernacular. Let he who has no sidearm, or let you who are not armed sell your, television. What do people, Xbox, jet ski, like whatever superfluous thing. This cloak, I would submit, it's not even superfluous. But get one. And I implore you, get real, actual, hands-on training. Be able to access that gun quickly and get first, second, third round hits on target, because that's what matters. And obviously have a good moral compass and backbone and know when it is lawful to use force and when it is not. Some quick, I guess I'll throw in some bonus verses. The words of God. If a man is caught breaking in and is struck so that he dies, there shall be no guilt for his bloodshed. And if a man sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. And many more. But you start there, right? If you don't know when you can use force, that's even probably more important. But that's probably a topic for another day. All right, I hope this was helpful. I hope that it spurred some people into some more serious training and thought and being well regulated of the Second Amendment. That doesn't mean regulated by the government. That means well trained, well disciplined. People often harp on shall not be infringed. Yeah, I get it. Check. Like, I'm with you there. Shall not be infringed. Totally agree. But it also says well regulated. How well regulated are you, sir? With that, thanks for listening and have a blessed day.